Okay, I think we're live and all looks good now. So hi everyone, welcome. We'll be starting in just a few moments as we wait for more attendees to join. So it's 1 minute past 11 now. In the meantime, I'd love to give you a quick overview of today's session. We'll be talking about why AI is an absolute must-have for fashion brands and retailers. Both of our speakers today are two industry leaders who have successfully navigated the challenges of managing supply and demand in these fast-moving marketplaces. They'll share their first-hand experiences on how AI is transforming merchandising, product data management, and operational workflows. We want to keep this session interactive, so if you have any questions, feel free to add them in the chat. And I see more people are joining now, so I think we can officially get started. So I will say again, hi everyone, and welcome to the very first session of our new webinar series. We're calling them AI and e-commerce talks. I'm Svetlana. I'm the founder and CEO of Pixyle.ai, and I'll be moderating today's session. In this series that we are planning, we'll cover various topics about how AI is shaping the e-commerce world. Today, we will kick things off with the first session titled Why AI is a Must Have for Fashion Brands and Retailers. So, over the next 1 hour, we'll explore practical insights on how AI can help brands and retailers improve product offerings and, of course, manage inventory more efficiently. So, at the beginning, we have two speakers with us. We'll start with short introductions and dive into a discussion right after. And at the end, we'll leave 10 minutes for questions from the audience. So please feel free to ask any question in the chat during the webinar, and we'll address them at the end. So maybe before we dive in, I'll do a quick intro from my side. I have a technical background in artificial intelligence, and I'm always very passionate to talk on this topic. I completed my PhD in AI at the University of Amsterdam in 2016, and this was way before AI was this popular. And I founded Pixyle AI in 2018 after. The goal when I founded Pixel was to make online shopping and product discovery super easy. Well, I'm personally guilty of being a very passionate shopper myself, and I felt the pain of poor filtering and incomplete searches on online e-commerce shops, which is something that I knew that AI can help with even at that time. So I must say that I've been so fortunate to work with AI in the past 15 years and witness the amazing progress that is happening. So for everybody that is in the audience listening and wondering if AI is really just a hype or if it really works, I will say for sure that the hype is real and is for a reason. What artificial intelligence can do today is just amazing. In a way, we have created a new intelligence to coexist with us and to help us in so many ways. And today, we want to talk about how AI can help fashion brands and retailers, and why and how should the industry adopt and start implementing it. Now, I would like to introduce our speakers and give the floor to them. So maybe we start first with Matt. Matt is a former group and merchandising director at N Brown Group. So welcome, Matt. Can you please briefly introduce yourself and share a bit about your background?
Can do. Good morning, everybody. So, as Svetlana said, I'm Matt Dawson. I was the merchandise director at M Brown Group until about December of this year. So I was there for 5 years or so, looking at all the different product categories that they sell, looking after planning and selling of merchandise. Prior to that, I was at Very Group for, ages, 18 years. I suppose the last 12, 18 months is where really my AI journey has started. So I spent a lot of time with different software providers and talking to different retailers and brands about what AI and machine learning can bring to retailers, like the retailers I worked with. And clearly it's such a big topic, and it'll cover everything from planning to selling in our worlds. And I'm really excited about what that will do and how we can work together with AI to benefit our colleagues and our businesses. So yeah, thank you for the invite.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Your background is really inspiring, and I completely agree with you. We need to just see how AI will impact everybody in the industry, and as you said, the colleagues and the work. So then I would also like to introduce Frances. She is director of merchandise planning at Fabletics. So welcome, Frances. Please, can
Hi.
you please briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. So yeah, as Svetlana said, I'm Frances. I've got 11 years experience in merchandise planning. Currently working for Fabletics. I joined the company back in July last year. So still learning a lot about the AI journey that they're on, but I can speak to some of that today for sure. Prior to that, I was working in Thailand for a e-commerce startup there, where we built a lot in-house and we worked a lot with our data science team on machine learning. So that's how I kind of started to understand a little bit more about AI and the realms of opportunity that there are. And then prior to that, I was working at Zalando, which is one of Europe's biggest e-commerce platforms, where they built a lot of this AI and machine learning in-house. So definitely used the tools, but didn't necessarily have such a good understanding of that at the time.
Wow, it sounds so nice. So you've done. It's really good to see that you have experience both in using AI, but also in working with engineers and creating an AI product. So that's really inspiring. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and experiences, Francis.
Thank you.
Um, so I think now is the time to kick off with the first questions, and I will first want to pose a question to Matt. So with your extensive experience in overseeing digital merchandising strategies across multiple brands, how do you see AI becoming a must-have tool for fashion retailers for optimizing their e-commerce operations?
Thank you. I think it's a really big topic, and there's lots of ways to look at it. I think the way I've been looking at it for the last couple of years is first things first. So we all know that our merchandising teams and buying as well, they spend an awful lot of time data mining. So getting to the numbers and hardly any time thinking about the numbers or making recommendations for the future. And what AI and machine learning can do in particular is it can flip that on its head. So if it was 70% data mining, 30% decision making, then if we can make a change to that so that AI and is gathering the data for us, then we can spend more time and make better decisions in the future. I think in addition to that, on the other side, I suppose, from a selling perspective, we've had tools in place. Svetlana, you talked about 15 years in AI, I think it was, that there've been tools to do this for some time. So Bloomreach, PIM has been hot topic for a number of years, and SEO and paid partnerships has been a big topic. But again, a lot of that is manually put together. If we can automate that, if we can bring AI to the fore, then we're having the systems make the recommendations for the human to kind of rubber stamp it, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really nice to hear. So basically, what you said is that automating the manual processes, the data, all of things that are being done manually, and of course they take a lot of time. It's what AI can help with,
I think
because
that's
yeah,
the starting position. I think, and
yeah,
that's you do this in sequence, I suppose,
yeah,
because we're all reading at the moment. AI will change everything. We won't need to work anymore. We'll just press a button, or we'll just tell the system to do it all
yeah.
for us, and that's great, and that will come, I'm sure. But at the very start of this, we've got people entering the fashion industry, in particular,
Mhm.
graduates or apprentices, who are spending too much time doing the crunching, getting the numbers, keying in systems. The easiest and quickest win comes from that automation of those tasks.
Yeah. And I can imagine, Matt, since all these people that are, just graduating and starting to work in the industry and their job is to enter data or, numbers, they are also new and they can make mistakes, right? So
Yeah, of
that's
course.
also, yeah, another thing that is challenging for brands and retailers.
Yeah, well, there's two sides to it. One is we probably lose too many people at that point to other industries, but two, you're right, we're putting an awful lot of responsibility on people who are very new to these roles. So we can benefit, we can improve things, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, Matt. I completely agree. Now, let's shift gears to discuss how AI is shaping the inventory planning and product discovery. So, I will pose a question to Francis now. Francis is someone with deep expertise in inventory management and assortment planning. How do you see AI reshaping how fashion e-commerce brands optimize their product offerings?
Yeah, so I think that there's many kind of ways that we can look at this, but one that I wanted to kind of draw on today was actually how we can look outside of maybe the data that we're used to working with in merchandising and in retail planning, and look at kind of these external sources of information, which are much more tricky to track and much more tricky to kind of draw any real conclusions from on a human level. So I think back to when I started working, my career was at Matalan. We would go out and we would do comp shops maybe once a quarter, once every 6 months, and we would go to probably Liverpool because it was the closest major city, and we would look in our key retailers' stores. We'd make some notes on what assortment they were showing, and we would look at the maybe entry and exit prices of the products that we probably could be bothered to check. You're not going to go to Marks and Spencer's and check the price of every single product in the store. And maybe we'd note down any kind of key highlights, and we would make decisions based on that one afternoon once every 6 months, where we would be going to look at the assortment that was purely in one of those stores. And I think another way that we would get our information in the past would be from Fashion Week. We would be going from the catwalk, we would be making decisions with the designers, and then we would be going down the route of ranging our assortment based on what we were seeing there. Again, these come once every 6 months. They're not massively reactive. And it's something that we're seeing kind of all the competition looking into the same information as well. Moving into the future and looking at how we can now use AI to optimize our product offerings, we're able to tap into trends. For example, things like Google searches, TikTok hashtags, TikTok interactions. And there's AI tools now that can take all this information and they can quantify that, and they can really forecast and project what the impact of these trends are going to be in the future. So they can take it from a small little interaction, see how that interaction is growing, and then they can let you know, okay, this is how you should be buying into this trend for the future. An example of this that we've used at Fabletics is we have bought into butt scrunch leggings, because that's something that we see trending at the moment on TikTok. We see it as being one of the top Google searches. So we're now going to implement that product into our range from April onwards. So it's really using the wider sources of data that are available and optimizing your range for the customer. I think there's also tools, for example, such as Edited, who are able to look at every single e-commerce site in the country that they're focusing on, and they're able to add in all the new arrivals of those products every single day. So instead of looking at a snapshot in time from one afternoon 6 months ago, they're able to in real time show how assortments are changing in stores, and we're able to react to that and then optimize our product offering based on that as well. I think when I was doing my research for this call, one of the brands that came up that had really benefited from this was Levi's. They'd seen the shift go from skinny jeans to wide leg jeans based on data that they'd seen from competitors. And they were able to make that shift early on to really tap into the customer trend change.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. So basically, what you're saying is that now it's much more easier to follow trends, whether that is on social media like TikTok, or from data coming, as you said, from the whole world of e-commerce. The tools are just taking, so you can make much better decision on what product offerings to add. And it's really inspiring to see that you basically went from just looking at data from one afternoon from one store into being able to look at a wider world and what is happening in the world. So that's really inspiring.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also being able to remain competitive in kind of real time as well. So where you've got your assortment, you're also now able to optimize your pricing and look at your competitors' price structure. And, there's tools available to scrape websites and feed you that information. So not only are you optimizing your assortment for customer demand, but you're also optimizing the pricing to meet the customer demand as well.
Yeah. So in a way, what we can conclude is that AI is empowering you, right? Is empowering you to make better decisions, and to be more aware. But just looking at sheets and condensed data. So it's really good to see that there is very positive impact on AI, because with the hype there's a lot of talks about AI and this and that. What would be the bad impact, but stories like this is actually what makes it so positive.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, what my next question for you, Francis, would be is like, at Fabletics, you focused on aligning inventory with customer needs. So, what do you think that how can AI enhance this process to help brands anticipate consumer demand more effectively?
Yeah, this call actually comes at a really good time for Fabletics because we've just implemented a supply chain planning solution with a tool from a company called Blue Yonder. So we're literally went live with that last month, and this is definitely a way that we're able to use AI to kind of improve our customer demand. So basically, the tool is able to look at demand forecasting, sizing, allocation, financial planning, and we're able to use the outputs of that tool really to build the customer demand and get it to the place where it needs to be. For example, when we're looking at our core assortment, the tool's able to monitor past sales, but also look at the missed opportunity in those past sales. And while I think we've always done this as a merchandising team, we tend to look at this at a kind of snapshot of time. So maybe we look at that for the past quarter or for the past 6 months, and we'll make a decision on the missed opportunity based on that. This tool is able to look in kind of really granular level, daily level, weekly level, where that missed opportunity was, and really extrapolate that into your future forecasting. It's also able to go into much more detail in terms of looking at this information on a SKU level, looking at this information on a size level even, which I think is just something, I think, going back to what Matt was saying about how much data we're having to go through to make these decisions. In the end, we quite often just take maybe the bigger trend or the bigger opportunity and say, okay, we'll just apply this to everything, because we don't have the time to go into that detail. And I think it's really game changing when we look at this from a retail perspective, because it is so hard to plan the stock that we send to our stores. Generally, you give every store probably the same initial allocation, maybe you double it for your best stores. And that's what we're doing. We're not sizing on a store level. We're not allocating our stock on a specific store level unless you only have a handful of stores to manage. And I think that this is where AI can really take it to the next level, because they can really go into that level of detail and make decisions that would take a merchandiser months. It can do it in seconds.
Yeah.
So I think this is where we can really reach that customer demand level, so that a customer is going into store and she's seeing a product that she wants to buy in her size, or she's seeing relevant product that she wants to buy in her size. And I think this is where the tooling can really come into its own, where it's just managing a much bigger data set, but able to look at a level of granularity that humans just don't have the capacity to do.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. And I can imagine, like you mentioned, it's really important to plan for the size. And I can imagine all these product details and relevance, as you said, for the products you want, like, is it casual, is it more elegant? Like, I assume there are a lot of product details that come together with analytics on making these decisions.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Francis. So maybe I can now pose a question to Matt. Yeah, you shared your experience, and in your career, you worked with a lot of cross-functional teams. So, how do you think that AI can drive maybe more collaboration between departments such as logistics, supply chain, and finance to improve the e-commerce efficiency?
It's a really good question. I think there are there are lots of different ways to look at this as well. I think the way I think about this is in probably three ways. So the first thing, when it comes to collaboration and working between different departments, is there has to be a human side of things. So there's no doubt you just described finance, warehousing, and kind of merchandising. The first thing to note is they all think they can do the job better than the other. So I think I can do a better job than the warehouse guys, certainly better than the finance guys, and vice versa. No question. That's the same throughout the world, I'm sure. AI can't change that for you. And equally, AI can't make you form relationships with these people. That is for the human, for the pilot, if you like. And this is a really important point with AI, and it's Microsoft, isn't it, who've got Copilot, and they've been really smart. And I think my former COO at M Brown, he's really smart in terms of how he describes tools and AI. He says it's like a plane with a pilot. You wouldn't let the plane fly itself. You need the human. But you wouldn't want the human trying to flap his wings to fly either. So it's a really important kind of coming together of systems. But what AI can do in those examples that you've used is it can quickly convert the data into the language or the required metrics that each partner requires. So today, for example, I will plan as a merchandiser, I will plan probably in currency and pound notes what my demand per week would be. But the warehouse, they don't move pound notes for me. What they do is they move boxes and they move SKUs and they move loads. But I can't really convert that for them. What AI could do is take all of my information and completely bring it together to be handover to those guys so you can use it. And I think introducing that and having AI do that hard work for you helps with the first 2 points that I made around relationships and trust between the different departments. So yeah, I think it could be would be a really big move on for collaboration within
that's great to
businesses.
hear, and I completely agree. So human relationship needs to stay human, right? And it's good thing that AI will not take that over, right? Because there's something that we still need to do. But as you mentioned, just exchanging data between teams, providing and empowering your colleagues from the warehouse or from another department with the right data, and organized in the right way, is where AI can help and make departments collaborate more in a more detailed and let's say an efficient way.
Yeah, I think, and Francis talked to it before around personalizing and targeting customer experience. That is absolutely going to come, and it'll really stretch the kind of the shopping or the retail experience. But at the same time, there's the want of a better phrase, the back office will be improved hugely by AI.
Okay, that's great to hear. Now, regarding customers, like given the evolving nature of customer preferences in fashion, we mentioned Gen Z right before. How can AI help retailers and brands strike the right balance between being profitable and meeting customer expectation in this really fast-paced digital environment?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? So where a lot of retailers are at the moment is that the balance ebbs and flows. It moves around, and sometimes, particularly in a world of shopping, online shopping, Google Shopping, Meta, etc., there can be quite there can be quite a lot of spray and pray when it comes to targeting, and what that can mean is a lot of wasted effort and, unfortunately, a lot of lost profitability opportunity. I think it'd be fair to say that the number of test cases for AI is growing, is building. So there are opportunities, no doubt, around range planning, as described through this call, around personalization, which we've talked to, and connecting customer with customer habit or behavior. And again, back to the mining point, if you can do that on scale, which AI can help with, then you have a customer contact solution. But I suppose there's another way to look at it is that imagine a world with AI, and it will come where you could just say, right, I want a range of products, a range of dresses where it looks like Zara, but it's priced like New Look, and I want to achieve 40% margin, and I want to drop 50 lines a month for the rest of the year. And that you can say that, and it will construct an offer. That is where we're going to get to. There will be refinement, there will be human intervention, no doubt, but you can see how it starts to move around in terms of the traditional work that, again, Francis described, kind of competitive shopping. A lot of that traditional work can be automated, can be built into a new way of planning, I
And what
suppose.
you mentioned, Matt, now is just so true and exciting for the AI that is coming, because you mentioned I would be able to tell, the AI I want this and that, and then it will create a plan for you. And that's, the conversational AI and all the AI assistants that we are seeing popping out. Because if you look at the tools now, you get a report, there's AI in the background, but you don't really talk with the AI. You see
Yeah.
the report, you see the numbers, and you know that it was AI creating. But the new shift would be, you're talking with the AI. It's not only those report, but you can say, oh, but can you also filter all the dresses, that have stripe pattern, similar, like this one, and then, it will
Yeah.
just create reports on the fly. And that's the future of how AI will be closer to people who are not technical, right?
I think that's the thing, and there's a couple of extra points in there. I think an important point for everyone on this call is, if you think AI is something that's going to happen in the future, you're behind the curve already, and you need to get swatting up. You need to get learning quickly, and that's point number one. But there's a point that I was listening to something the other day, which I thought was really good. There's a film at the sorry, off tangent, but there's a film at the moment called The Brutalist, which is Oscar nominated, and it's got Adrian Brody in there and Felicity Jones, and they had to learn Hungarian for the role, but their accents weren't perfect, because how could they be? They used AI to refine their accents to be perfect, in line with a true Hungarian speaker. So it is there now. It's happening, and it's about the test cases rather than the capability. And as those test cases come through and connect with the capability, that's where the things we've described through this call start to massively
And it's
increase.
really good to hear a use case, right? Because all we think, most we hear about hypes, but a use case like what you shared, whether it's in film industry or for merchandising, you feel that it's real, and it's happening. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
Okay, now I would like to talk with Frances again and ask her another question. So, Frances, with your experience in managing, I would say, international markets, how do you think AI can help brands address the challenges of global inventory management and adapt to diverse customer behaviors across different regions?
Yeah. So if I have any friends watching this, a few did say they would, they're going to laugh at me now, because they always joke that I managed to get the fact that I lived in Thailand into every conversation possible. But I do have a relevant example here of how maybe things aren't managed so well. So living in Thailand, I was really surprised when I would go to some of the global stores. And in November, December, these stores would be full of winter jackets. And I just used to laugh as a merchandiser. I thought, who is responsible for sending this product to a country where it is 35 degrees outside? No one is going to buy it. And inevitably, these styles always ended up heavily marked down. And it's obviously just a waste of prime retail space. And I think that AI is really going to tap into this in the future. Again, I think it alludes back to the point that I made previously, that basically AI is able to look on a much more granular level and in much more detail and shape the assortment for stores and for customers as well. It doesn't necessarily have to just be in store, it can also be online. So basically, AI is able to kind of look at the customer demographic, the performance of products, and kind of regional trends, and be able to provide outputs based on this information to improve the assortments that we're seeing going into either stores or online. The benefit of this ultimately is more revenue for the brands. You're not taking prime retail space up with product that the customer just isn't looking to buy, and you can replace that with product that the customer is. I think also something that maybe Matt alluded to as well a little bit is kind of thinking about how we manage our stores, and how we did traditionally. So, for example, we used to do store clustering. The first company I worked for had 220 stores, and we used to cluster them by A, B, C, D. So we had 4 clusters for all 220 stores. Generally, I think most stores are based on kind of a revenue-based approach. Maybe there's a small amount of customer demographic built into this, but really it's still quite a one-size-fits-all approach, and you're just sending a smaller amount of inventory to your lower performing stores. AI again is able to look more into the demographic of that area, more into the shopping behaviors of the customers in those stores, and think about what would be the optimal assortment. And when you're doing your buys, it's able to already from that buying stage feed that information in, so you're buying the right amount of product, and then it can also follow up with the distribution side and look at sending the right product to those stores. And then I think for me, finally, on kind of how we can use AI to really manage a global inventory, it can also look at the timing of how customers shop as well. So, for example, some countries have customers that are quite proactive. So they are going to buy winter coats as soon as September hits because they've always bought winter coats in September, and they want to get the best trend and the most hype product before it sells out. Whereas you've got other countries who are like, I'm going to wait until it's got cold, then I'll buy my coat. So I think at the moment, what we also do is we all buy our winter coats and we all push it all out to store as soon as possible. What we're able to do with AI is actually make sure we're getting that product to the store at the time it will sell. So it's much more of kind of a just-in-time inventory optimization method, where we're not taking up store space or even e-commerce space with products that just aren't ready to sell yet. And as soon as the demand's there, AI is able to push that product out to either stores or optimize it online, to make the most of those sales.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. So basically, with the help of AI, you're optimizing of what products to place where, depending on how consumers on different regions internationally act, and that of course is helping you optimize the inventory. So that's great to hear. I see there are first questions popping up from the audience, so maybe we can start from those so that we have time to address them. I see the first one is for Francis. So it's what are some common challenges fashion brands face when implementing AI in their e-commerce strategies? So have you seen this kind of experience firsthand?
Yeah, I mean, first, thanks for the question. I think there's kind of many challenges to be faced, and I'll maybe just think of the first ones that come to my head. I think, first of all, the cost aspect. There's a lot of tools out there. I think people don't know which is the right tool for their business. And I think if you're not the most tech savvy company, maybe you don't know what's going to provide you the most kind of long-term value for money. I think speaking to that, I think it was IBM had said that actually any company that implements some type of AI into their merchandise planning will improve their revenues by 10%. So actually, unless you're a really small company, probably the cost of the tool, the benefits there are outweighing that cost automatically. And you should just, like Matt said, just get on that ride and start going and learn a little bit more as you go along. I think another area is trust and understanding. Yeah. So I think in our personal life, we have really adapted to AI and we already trust it. I just watch on Netflix what Netflix tells me to watch. I don't really question this. And I think there's many cases in life we saw our email inbox and I don't question that something went to my junk email. It probably is. I'm fine. It might miss it a couple of times, but it's not enough for me to be going through and checking every single detail. Whereas I think that we don't necessarily trust in the workplace. And I think it's maybe we don't understand how tooling can work and what it can provide. But I think also like we're not experts in data science or machine learning. And when it's my performance at stake, I want to kind of be sure that I'm right before I trust a new tool. And I think quite often intuition and experience seem like the more likely or the least challenging outcome, let's say, when actually we know that we should really just go to trusting the tooling from AI and kind of ask the right questions to build our understanding. And then kind of the final way that I would say that people face a challenge at the moment is siloed teams and communication barriers. So this is something that I had in my previous company. A good example was we worked really closely with the data science team to improve personalization on site. So we built an algorithm, and one thing that we wanted to prioritize was improving conversion rates on sites. The data science team built an amazing tool, and it increased our conversion rate. The problem was that it didn't increase our revenue. In fact, our revenue went down.
Wow.
So I went back to the data science team and I said to them, "Hey, what's going on?" And they said to me, "You asked us to improve your conversion rate. We improved your conversion rate." And actually, it's learning how to talk to tech teams and learning how to give them the outcome that you want. Like for me, it was a given that revenue would increase. But that's not how this team works. You give them the outcome you want, they work to that one sole output unless you give them that extra information. So I think it's about working really closely with these teams and understanding how they interact and what like almost language you should speak to them in so that we're all optimizing for the same results.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting example. So basically, it's optimizing for one thing, but also looking at the global picture, right? It's not, being super, super focused as a data scientist, right?
Yeah, and understanding that the data science teams aren't retailers. That is not their job. Their data is to build me a tool to enable me to do my job better.
Yes.
So I need to be telling them what the outcome I need is and in very specific terms so that I can get the results that I want.
Yeah, well, that's completely right, and I assume a lot of people from the audience can feel with that if they ever worked on building your product, AI product from scratch.
Yeah.
And I think what is really interesting, what you mentioned about the trust, right? Like, how can we trust the AI? How can we start feeling a bit more confident, in the results that it's producing, that it's right? And what Matt mentioned before is, okay, you have the AI, but you don't allow it to be the full pilot. It's the co-pilot, so you also need to have some control. So for crucial things, I assume you need to check, but for things like spam folder, as you mentioned, you can just let it go, right? It's already doing the job as good as it is, so it's not a crucial life at that. So it just also depends, I guess, on the task and what is it that we give the control of AI to.
Yeah, and also understanding that this is never going to be a finished product. You're not buying into a finished product. This tool also will continue to learn and continue to improve. It will improve and learn faster than a human can learn and improve, but you're not going to get 100% success from the start. And I think sometimes maybe our expectations are higher than we would expect maybe a human to have. So we can be quite dismissive of the results, whereas actually anything, as long as it's an improvement, is going to take you to that next level.
Yeah. And I really like, there was a panel. So we met with Francis on Pixyle merchandising, and there was a panel, and I really like the correlation when it was made that AI is your colleague. Just as when you get, when you colleague and it takes time to learn and it's not productive right away, that is how AI it is. You start working with it and then it improves, and then it starts feeling, what the outcome should be, not from the first run, but in the terms of optimization. So I think it's just, we can really correlate, the learning phase of the humans with the AI.
Exactly this, and you have to put that time in as if it was a new employee and help train the tool to understand and learn, and then you can step away and trust in the same way that you would with a new employee.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, thanks, Francis. I see there's a question for Matt as well. It's from Monica. What are the main challenges retailers face today that you believe AI is best positioned to solve?
Yeah, thanks for that one, Monica. There's clearly a lot, and we've talked to some of them. So we've talked about repetitive tasks, we've talked to unprofitable activity, we've talked to customer targeting, and I'd say they're the important ones. But if you think about it widely, because we're talking about retail, you could be used for month end or balance sheets within finance teams, could be used for creating trade plans based on real activity, not just instinct or gut feel. You could build your range, you could create your pricing structure. What else? Warehouse layouts, route planning for delivery. I mean, it's this isn't just a retail opportunity. This is or kind of the selling side of things, or even the planning. This is so vast, and I think the important part is how I think Will's put a question in there around what's your first kind of steps? How do you get this on board? And it is hard, and there's a huge trust element at board level, at colleague level. But so I'd say probably some of it is starting in that place to kind of build the understanding and the excitement about what this could bring. But after that, people start to get excited and start to come up with their own ideas of what AI can bring. I mean, and Svetlana, you've been really generous about talking about us. We haven't talked about your business, but your business solves a lot of these problems that it takes hours, months, years for people to do, and the opportunities are unlimited. I would
Thanks
say.
for the nice words, Matt. And I see that you also touched a bit upon Will questions, so maybe I can read it to the audience, and you can share more insights. So, how would you go about starting your journey for implementing AI into a company? Would it be going to events, for example, reaching out to different companies? And is there any companies you feel are leading the way for retail merchandising using AI? So I don't know if you want to add something to that question, Matt.
Well, I would say, I mean, what Will's just described I think, is a good way of doing it. I think what I've been doing, and Francis, you described it earlier as well through this call, is you you learn. So you spend a lot of time looking up, reading. Google is your friend after all, but also LinkedIn as well. But get out there and talk to people, and you can start to see what different software providers are starting to come forward with. And there are some really good developments already, but as you learn more, you can build on top of that, and you can start to question and challenge better. So I'd say that is definitely a starting point. But as I just described in the last answer, I think a really important part, one of the things that I was doing before I left M Brown was trying to develop support internally just as much as externally. So Nuno, the COO, who's very learned in this space, that's for sure. But to try and help him understand how that works from a retail perspective, from a merchandise perspective, because he'll be thinking about it from a digital perspective and a website and an optimization perspective. So you need to try and get the internal development or understanding at the same time as your own development, if you like, and be excited about it. Right? This is revolutionary. A lot of people talk about AI as being well, it means that everyone's going to lose their jobs, and in 10 years we'll all be it'll be Terminator 2 all over. We'll have no jobs, no money. It's not going to be the case. What it will add is benefit. Yes, it's slightly scary, and yes, it's going to take some time to get that colleague on the same journey as us. But the opportunities are massive.
I completely agree, Matt. And I think like there will be shift in positions, right? Like with every digital revolution, like for example, accounting. I read once that when the calculator came out, everybody was worried. Oh, now we don't need people to do the number subtraction. But then you advance to a higher thinking role, right?
Exactly.
And then there is a shift in how roles that companies are going to become, because there's different tools that help us with the old ways. And this is the way that I want to think as well.
I think what's really important in this, we are talking about the fashion industry, and the fashion industry, some of the fashion industry is built on feel, instinct, look, sight, touch. So AI can't take away those things. And that's the important thing here. It will speed things up. It will make things easier, but you still need to have the eye of a buyer or a designer or a merchandiser. They're still
The
hugely
human part
important.
will stay human, right? So, as always, Francis, happy to hear your answer on Will's question as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think to just tag on to what Will just said as well, that actually you still need to have that element of human, let's say, thought process and knowledge, especially when you're maybe tapping into new trends as well, because there's obviously a lot less information to feed into the AI tools. So I think that that's also something that's really important to bear in mind. And I think with things like the growth of social media driving a lot of these trends, we're seeing so many new trends coming from so many different sources that you really can't possibly feed all of these into an AI tool and get like your optimized range. So I definitely think that that's the case for continuing to use that buying, merchandising, design expertise. I think in terms of looking at how you would go about implementing AI, I think first of all, maybe on a really basic level, think about jobs and tasks that you do that drive you crazy, that you find boring, that you feel are repetitive, that you have to do the same thing once a month, every month. It takes up 1 day, 2 days of your time, because there will be a solution for that. So I think I'd probably start maybe thinking about tasks that you're already doing that you feel like there should be a better process, and maybe trying to find tooling that can support you with that. I think I'd also reach out to your tech teams, reach out to your product managers, see what they're capable of. Like, you might work for like a huge tech-driven company who are able to react and implement new tooling much faster and are able to support you with the tooling that you need. Or you might be a much smaller business where actually maybe you need to invest a little bit more money in a tool that's less hands-on for the internal business, but it's also a tool that maybe you can understand yourself, and you don't need to rely on a tech team that maybe isn't as agile in that area to kind of support you. And then finally, the way that I would look at kind of implementing the AI is maybe look at businesses that you're trying to emulate. Like, we all have maybe our top competitors or the businesses that we're closest to. Keep an eye on like what they're doing. It will be in the news. You can ask ChatGPT what they've implemented. Most brands also are selling themselves by saying, hey, we work with Zara. Hey, we work with Aloe. Hey, we work with H&M. So then look into that tooling, because if your competitors are using it, there's probably a need for your business. And I think that that would be the way that I would implement something if you really feel completely unknowledgeable in the area and that's how you want to start. I think also events are a really good place. I think, for example, again, as Matt said, like, I was fascinated when I got speaking to Alex on the tool that you guys have, because I never knew that there would even be such a tool that can look at an image of a product and derive all the attributes of that product. Like, it's fascinating to me. And I think it's something that in kind of the buying world, it's so poorly managed. It's probably the worst data that we have in the business, because it's such a time-consuming thing to attribute every single thing correctly. And I think this will save a lot of time and improve the data accuracy of a business. But I only knew about your business and even knew that such a thing could exist from a conversation. So I think that this is definitely like a good way to kind of understand what's out there.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Francis, again for the nice words. And I think like both of you mentioned something that is really important, and that is like educate yourself, right? Like, it can be Google, as Matt said, it can be, Francis, you mentioned, look at case studies, go to events, just talk with people, because just educating yourself is the first step to see, okay, what tools exist, and what are the real use cases that it can help with, and then go from there. So that's I think really good advice for the audience. I think we'll take one more question before we kind of wrap up. So I see from Martina, there is a question around what innovations in AI do you think will have the biggest impact on fashion e-commerce over the next years? So basically a bit more forward thinking. Maybe Francis, because you were talking, we start with you, and then we go to Matt.
Great, I can steal all of Matt's answers. I'm sure we'll have a lot of similarities here. So I think for me, probably one of the biggest areas would be hyper-personalized shopping. I think it's something that we've kind of briefly alluded to in this chat already. So we're already seeing this when you go onto a big e-commerce platform, you look on one style and then it says, see other styles you might like, or wear this style with, complete the outfit. That's all AI driven. And I think we're only at the beginning of where this could go. I think this is getting better and more accurate every single day. And I think shopping is going to become online so effortless because they will know who I am. And they will know that I'm going to an event, and they will pull that whole outfit together, and I can just put it all in my basket and check out pretty quickly. So I think that kind of hyper-personalized shopping experience is definitely one of the main ways that we're going to see it impact in the next 5 years. We see things like Zalando already have like a chatbot, and you can basically just message in the chatbot like, hey, I'm going to a wedding. What do you recommend? These are the brands I'm interested in. I like this dress. Can you recommend an outfit based on that? And I think that that's already such a cool way of doing things, but in the future, we won't even need the chatbot. It will already know. So I think that these kind of areas, I think virtual try-ons is another one. So I think a good example for me, a personal case, is I shop on ASOS, and ASOS asks me what size I am, but also what brands I like to buy and what sizes I would buy from those brands. And then it gives me a recommendation for a completely different product from a completely different brand of where they think that I would be most likely to shop. So I think that from a customer experience side, that's amazing. I'm buying a product, it fits me, no issue, but also reducing the amount of returns that we have is going to be a game changer for merchandising as well. And then I think just in general, as we mentioned kind of in my first answer, was looking at AI trend forecasting. So faster reactions to trends. I think we're going to see the Zaras of the world, the Sheins of the world, the H&Ms of the world really reacting in real time to kind of fashion trends and being able to turn that stock around so much faster. And then I think just supply chain kind of inventory management. So classic merchandising, getting the right product to the right stores at the right time.
Yeah. Well, those are three very, very interesting examples, and I completely agree with all of them. Matt, maybe now it's great to hear also your thoughts on how the future would look like with AI.
Yeah, what she said on a lot of those things. I think just additional, and they are all absolutely right. If you think maybe wider, think about fraud prevention, dynamic shopping, as we said, price optimization. I mean, I was reading something the other day from Alex Baldock, who's the CEO of Currys in the UK, and he said that the AI for customers, not just kind of for experiences, but AI will be the biggest retail development since the launch of the tablet. Now that's pretty big. If you can imagine a world, or remember a world before there was an iPad or a Samsung device, it's revolutionary. I think the other thing to say is that 5 years is a long time in this space. So if you think what was happening 5 years ago or longer in retail, so TikTok came out in 2016, it's now got 2 billion active customers or users, sorry. There will be something else that comes out in the next 5 years, or multiple things that come out that just don't exist today, especially if you think about what's happening in the US. The world will change, and it'll change, and it'll change again probably in 5 years' time. So there's a lot that we'll know about, and it will be refinement of existing ways of working, ways of planning. But there's some things that will come through, capability that will come through that will be off the charts and blow our minds again, I'm sure.
Well, thanks both. I think like it's maybe now time to say the closing words because we want to make sure we are on time. I see it from the comments, Will saying that it was really insightful. I hope everyone in the audience find this session insightful. I want to say thanks to Matt and Francis for sharing your valuable insights and thoughts today. Well, it's clear from what you shared also that AI isn't just a tool. It's really a game changer for fashion e-commerce brands and retailers. And it can go from merchandising and inventory planning to automation innovation, to consumer hyper-personalization, as you mentioned. It's just going to empower brands and retailers to stay ahead. We also see this firsthand impact of AI from many brands and retailers we work with, because AI allows to become more efficient, especially for product data creation from images, as you mentioned, and boost KPIs. I still remember one client we started working with came to us and said, wow, now I can generate 3 times more product data 2 times faster, and this made the whole team feel really good, because this is the real impact of AI, helping teams to become faster and better, and of course contribute to the companies. So for everyone in the audience that is really curious about the topic of AI, as I said at the beginning, I'm always so passionate to talk about it. feel free to book a 30-minute chat or a consultation with me, for any questions that you might have. I will be really happy to help. The team will add the Calendly link in the comments of the event, so you can go and book a 30-minute call with me. And I just want to say thanks to everyone who joined us. We hope this session gave you a meaningful insight about AI and how it can be used in retailer. Please stay tuned for our next session in March. We'll dive even deeper into how technology is revolutionizing the industry. We'll announce the speakers and topics next week. So yeah, keep following us and you'll see what's coming next. So thanks again and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.